What most Americans don't know about K-beauty. From the innovative formulations to how K-beauty actually got started, all the way to fermented products and the way that the regulatory system actually works with the Korean versus the American FDA. Today, we're gonna dive into the differences. You've probably seen amazing and innovative Korean beauty brands lining the shelves of your favorite influencers' cabinets. That has been the case for me. This is Haru that Beauty Within got me hooked on, and they helped us actually uncover a lot of the information in this video. The insights in this video are sponsored by them, and what's interesting is how retailers and stores in America actually sponsored Korean companies originally to get them here from overseas. You see, arguably, the first K-beauty trend actually started in Germany. In the 1950s, Germany came out with these light as air foundations. They were almost like a mix between a moisturizer and a foundation. But almost half a century later, K-beauty reinvented it as the BB cream. And this is actually how K-beauty got started. If you remember back to 2007, 2010, BB creams were everything. Everyone wanted them in their routine. And quickly thereafter came CC creams and DD creams and even VV creams. And that's when the BB cream trend started to die. And it wasn't because Korea didn't make an amazing product. You see, they took these formulations from Germany and they added more lightweight textures, beneficial ingredients, and sunscreens. But what happened is that large conglomerates in America, like L'Oreal or Estee Lauder, stepped in and started copying them. When they created the DD cream and the VV cream and all these other things, there wasn't a noticeable difference between these different products, and therefore the trend died out. But then K-beauty had a resurgence a couple years later. We started to see a couple of them in 2015, and it was actually quite hard to get your hands on them. You see, retailers who actually sold here in America would contract directly with brands from Korea, where these products were being produced. That's how they got overseas, and basically if you didn't have that in through this retailer who was essentially acting like a sponsor or a mentor for these brands, they wouldn't be here. But now that has definitely changed. Haru means day by day in Korean, and it's this idea of taking your skincare a step at a time, working with your body and going with the flow. And that's kind of how Korean beauty made its way into America. Haru, or day by day. People started bringing them back in their suitcases, influencers started using them, people started talking about them, but unfortunately they were still really hard to get. And then the 10-step Korean skincare routine and the 12-step and the 15-step skincare routines from Korea came out. But guess what? They weren't from Korea. Korea, specifically Seoul, is one of the hubs for plastic surgery, for cosmetic rejuvenation, and for cosmetic formulation in the entire world. A lot of cutting-edge technology, procedures, and products come from this area, and it's no wonder that people around the globe became obsessed. The 10-step Korean skincare routine was just the idea that people were using multiple products on their face, and people in America started to promote the fact that people in Korea would use everything from a double cleanse to 2 different essences and toners, all the way to an eye cream, and they started to count up the steps and see how many more they could push in. And yes, there are amazing products that come from Korea, like this black rice toner or this bamboo mist, which you may not have seen in traditional American beauty standards back in the early 2010s. But people in Korea weren't necessarily putting 15 layers of this stuff on their face along with 12 other products. That was basically a marketer's fantasy here in America that started to get promoted to get people to buy more products. And honestly, now the Korean 12-step skincare routine is dead, but Korea didn't kill it. America did. And it's because America started to create copycat products to try to kind of jump on the bandwagon, right? To kind of grab onto some of this attention and therefore market share. But even though this 12-step routine is falling out of favor, the products are here to stay. Because you see, what Korean beauty did for us is what we as consumers have been waiting for all along. Before K-beauty, the American consumer really had 2 choices. You could go luxury, high-end Sephora, or you could go drugstore with all of these promises and claims, but you really couldn't find fantastic formulas that really did what the packaging said at an inexpensive price. And K-beauty came in and bridged that gap. It's got drugstore prices that focus on soothing, hydrating, sometimes mild exfoliation, and active ingredient penetration into the skin. And although this was claimed by so many drugstore brands 10, 15 years ago, the brands in American drugstores really were not living up to those promises, and you had to spend tons of money at Sephora if you wanted something decent. Korean beauty is all about products that promote hydration, these lightweight textures and feels, these beautiful experiences, and even technology into their products, such as fermented black rice. And of course, as soon as anybody tried them, even without knowing the cosmetic chemistry, you could feel and see the difference. Let's actually talk about that. Let's talk about fermented ingredients, because that is one thing that most Americans don't know about K-beauty skincare, is how fermented ingredients actually work in products and how they can be put into them, such as this black rice hyaluronic toner. You see, fermentation has been around since God made dirt, and fermentation is this natural process that happens when microbes like bacteria or yeast break down chemical compounds. This often happens in sugar, and it's why we have things like alcohol, and kombucha, and of course kimchi, or sauerkraut. They break down these complex substances into more simple ones. And what does this mean in skincare? It means that these ingredients can absorb more readily. It's breaking a lot of these sugars down, making certain ingredients more available, like amino acids. Now, you could put amino acids directly into a product, or you can get them through fermentation. Fermenting can increase the amount of active ingredients in a product, but still do that in a way that is very soothing and nurturing to skin. And especially because we are taking complex substances and chemically breaking them down, they can penetrate into the skin easier. And specifically, Haru uses black rice, which has been cultivated and grown in Korea for thousands of years. I hope that I'm pronouncing this right, but there's an area in Korea called the Gyeonggi province. And apparently for over 2,500 years, they have been cultivating rice there, and they're pretty famous for it. It's because they have excellent soil quality there, and they actually have the infrastructure to take this rice and to process it and ferment it properly. And that's what Haru does, especially with this rice toner. And I have to say, I don't know how I didn't find out about this sooner. This black rice hyaluronic toner is like, it is like a kombucha drink for your face. It is soothing, a little bit bubbly, but not stingy, and it just leaves you feeling great. And again, when we turn and learn those ingredients, we can see why. They have black rice at over 2,000 parts per million, and it's really nice that they label this on the packages, which American consumers don't realize K-beauty brands are doing as an added benefit, you know, for people to understand their products. This has ginseng, this has lichen, this has hyaluronic acid at 600 parts per million. And fun fact, fermented black rice has a 16 times higher antioxidant amount than fermented black beans. And black rice has 30 times the antioxidant effect than white rice. So this is packed with, yes, antioxidants, hyaluronic acid. It soaks into the skin so well. And you know that I have become quite obsessed with Korean essences. This is technically called a toner, but I find it to be like a hybrid between a toner and an essence. Oh, it really is kombucha for your face. It absorbs so nicely, and this has quickly become one of my top 3 essences that I've ever tried. I want it all over. Another thing that people don't realize about K-beauty is how they focus on moisture and being hardness-free. And these are terms that, you know, in America we don't normally come by. Like, what is hardness-free? And it's the idea of soothing the skin, taking care of it with layers and being gentle, while still infusing active ingredients or still being kind to the skin without overstripping or over exfoliating, which you know we are prone to doing here within the States. Because South Korea has this focus on cosmetic dermatology and understanding skin and creating products with that in mind, they really look at the pH of skin, which naturally hangs out at around a 5.5. And brands such as Haru formulate their products to match this pH, which means things like their black bamboo mist actually soothe and nourish the skin instead of over drying it or kind of throwing it off balance. You know that I have a vendetta against mini mists that are a little bit more neutral to alkaline. The skin naturally likes to hang out in a slightly acidic environment, and for products that you leave on the skin, ideally, once you get your actives to penetrate, a little bit acidic is where it should be. This mist is formulated at a pH of 5.5 to do just that, and this just feels like a walk through the subtropical bamboo rainforest. Like, have you ever walked through a bamboo rainforest, or have you ever seen bamboo? Fun fact, did you know that bamboo is actually a type of grass? And did you know that it can grow up to 1 meter a day? And in conversion, that's a little bit more than a yard, like a yard and a third. Most people don't know that, and bamboo is amazing, but it is also fantastic for skin. And in this toner, it really is like a refresh throughout the day. The mister is also super fine. You don't get any of those major clumps that fall out. And whether you spray this under makeup, whether you spray it over makeup, or just as a refresher on your back or on your chest, it's part of this sensorial, layering, but still simple experience. And some people in Korea actually use this instead of a toner. They just use a mist for that step in their routine. Speaking of this innovative mister, most people in America don't know that Korea has really innovated on their packaging. There are multiple design awards and opportunities in Korea, and Haru has actually won over 3 of them. But we see from Korea these really beautiful packages, really innovative ways to hold or to dispense products, or even to maintain the integrity of the formula inside. And Korea happens to win the design awards not only in Korea, but internationally. For example, Haru has won the Red Dot Design Award, they've won the Idea Design Award, and the 2020 IF Design Award. This one, particularly Beauty Within, it got me hooked on. Look at this, it's like a little egg and it has a little notch for your finger, and whether you're taking photos or you're just holding it, it's almost like a de-stressing mechanism. And that's another thing that most people don't realize. I always say that skincare is self-care, but different studies and articles have actually come out talking about how skincare can provide psychological stress relief to those of us struggling in a pandemic. Skincare has been very therapeutic for me personally, but as well as for other people. And the fact that certain brands understand that and turn these products into an entirely new design experience is revolutionary, because in America, at least before, brands didn't do that. It was all about, here's a product, a bunch of claims on the front, hope you like it, hope you buy it, especially if we're looking at the drugstore. But now we have options that are inexpensive. Again, this entire line is between $15 and $35. And they do provide a truly sensorial experience, not to mention the products themselves. Again, this one does have the fermented black rice and hyaluronic acid, and this one is their cream. I am obsessed with this one. It honestly reminds me of like a vegan Easter egg for your face. Just from the packaging to how it feels to also how it comes out. It is super fluffy and moisturizing, and it reminds me of whipped egg whites with all of the nutrients and benefits of the yolk. But of course, Haru is vegan and cruelty-free, so no chickens were harmed in the making of these products, which is also something that I wish that American beauty and just American agricultural standards would wake up to. And speaking of agriculture, there are different regulatory bodies in both America, Korea, and internationally that regulate agriculture, but also things like skincare, specifically the FDA. Now, this is something Americans don't know about K-beauty as well, because there are some products sold in Korea that are not available here in America, such as sunscreens that can't be labeled as sunscreens and have to be labeled as antioxidant filters. And understandably, if they're not approved to be sold in America, certain people in America get scared. But that's when we have to talk about the regulatory process. The American FDA is a very slow-moving machine. It is very meticulous, it is good, but you know, things do slip by, and it's still very slow-moving. The KFDA is also very meticulous, but they seem to move a little bit faster. And again, I think this comes from the fact that there's so many advancements in technology and cosmetic surgery there. The FDA understands that they really have to be on it. They have to look into ingredients, look into treatments and procedures, because people want them. And if they don't look into them and decide whether or not they're safe or unsafe to be put on the market, people are going to go around and they're going to do what's happening in America, in New York, in Miami, getting silicone and cement injected into their butts. And again, I understand that there's a pricing disparity and there's other reasons for that to be happening, but the fact that the Korean FDA actually prioritizes this is wonderful because it gives us new products at a quicker rate. Now, there have been products and discrepancies, such as with sunscreens that were made by certain manufacturers and then worked on with brands such as Purito and Dear Claire's. They have both come under fire recently for what has happened with their sunscreens, but that is not a KFDA regulatory problem. It now appears that that is a manufacturer that was being shady. And that's a story for another video, but there are updates on that which are being looked into. In addition to all these design awards, Korea also has a fair amount of eco-friendly packaging. Haru specifically has packaging that is recyclable, it is printed with soy ink, and it is certified by the FSC. This ensures that any of the trees that have been used to make this are not destroying local ecosystems or societies or communities of people. It is really the gold standard for paper or tree products to make sure that they're being produced responsibly and in an eco-friendly manner. And when we talk about the FDA, we kind of also have to talk about product claims, because certain things are said in Korea that when translated seem to mean something different when they could actually be the same. For example, we hear brightening or skin whitening, and you know, as an American, I'm just like, oh my god, that is terrifying. What do you mean skin whitening? But when you realize that that's referring to evening out pigmentation or reducing discoloration, you can see that in America, companies are piggybacking off of Korea and they're trying to create two separate products that do the same thing, when in reality, a lot of these ingredients can do the exact same stuff and in Korea are labeled similarly. regularly. We're talking about things such as vitamin C, alpha-arbutin, kojic acid, things like niacinamide, even azelaic acid, tranexamic acid, and AHAs, or exfoliators. And a lot of people don't realize that America is really trying to piggyback off of this success, and in my personal experience, I hope that America's copycat brands don't ruin it. You know, in America we have Sephora, and they definitely have a K-beauty section, but they put brands in there like Tatcha, and Tatcha is not K-beauty. And that's a very interesting phenomenon, especially years ago. Brands would copy what was happening in luxury so that we had dupes, so that we had less expensive options. But when K-beauty products like these are $15 to $30, why would you need to create a dupe when that's already a very affordable price? Whereas these copycat brands, especially when they're trying to copycat K-beauty, they aren't able to replicate the formulas, or they don't put as much work into the fermentation or to the ingredients or to the soothing feel and texture. You know, and that is something that is very interesting that I hope doesn't get commercialized, as we've seen with other things happening in the past. For example, K Skincare focuses on soothing and nurturing the skin, and when they have exfoliants, they're very gentle. And in America, let's be honest, we live in an over-exfoliation nation with harsh walnut scrubs and scratch your face off things. And when they try to replicate things that are done in K-beauty, it just doesn't work out well. For example, this is the Wonder Black Rice Soft Peeling Gel. This has cellulose, and no, it's not your skin coming off, but this is very indicative of what we actually see coming from Korea. Instead of having these harsh, grainy scrubs and salt scrubs and walnut shells and apricot pits, this is made with cellulose, with glycerin, and agents that evaporate like alcohol, so that it's actually soothing on the skin. This product does have that black rice ferment. It also has lichen. It goes onto the skin like this. You kind of actually put it on like a mask and you let it dry onto the skin, and then yes, this product does ball up. And don't let people tell you that it's your dead skin. It's not your dead skin, it's the cellulose in the product that's balling up. But when you gently move that around the face, it is removing some of your dead skin cells in the process. This is a very, very gentle form of physical exfoliation. And in Korea, if you're doing something like this, haru-haru, or day by day, it makes sense to focus on something that's not going to damage your skin's barrier or cause long-term irritation. As you see, it kind of goes on like a mask, and then you do start to emulsify and it balls up. And again, you really do have to rinse this off the face. This is not something that you want to leave on. I would actually do this before your cleanser or between a double cleanse. And even though this is not my personal favorite product, this is very indicative of what we find in K-beauty. Because again, it's all about that gentle, that soothing, that caring for the skin, you know, instead of trying to blow it up and sandpaper it off of our faces. Even when it comes to Korean oils, we have these lightweight options that soak onto and into the skin instead of feeling heavy on top. I find that when you look at more oily products, you know, you definitely feel like you have grease on your skin, but there are innovations that have come from Korea that feel lightweight. And this one specifically, again, it's the black rice facial oil. This black rice technology, I don't know how Haru did it or what they put inside of their line to get this to work, but my God, it makes my face as happy as my stomach feels after eating dolsot bibimbap. And I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but that is literally my favorite Korean dish. Some tofu dolsot bibimbap in the little clay pot where the black purple rice gets all sticky on the sides. Oh my God, I could die. Can you tell I'm hungry? But this oil does have that same black rice, and it's actually the majority of this formula. It's a black rice bran oil, and they also have oils in here like jojoba, which you know is one of my favorite. This is super lightweight on the skin. It absorbs like a dream, and the way that I would describe this is like, it's like putting a nail base coat on before you put your polish. Imagine nail polish as your makeup. This is like the base coat. It absorbs, but it still makes your nails look amazing, and you're like, oh my God, do I even need to put polish on because they look so good right now? But it's lightweight and it's not suffocating. Rice bran oil is truly a formula that I haven't played around a lot with because I've been so obsessed with jojoba, and again, this does have jojoba in it, but I am truly loving it, and I'm saying that as someone who has, you know, more oily, acne-prone skin. And especially when you compare the prices of some of these things to other high-end brands, you just sit there and you wonder, literally you wonder, why are people paying so much money for this expensive American beauty or French beauty luxury that's seaweed and a Nivea cream? Why are people doing that when this kind of stuff is available? Out of all the Haru products, the rice toner is hands down my favorite. I would have to follow that one up by this one. Beauty Within has me obsessed. I actually use this as an eye cream as well because it's so soothing to this area, because remember, as long as it's eye safe, if it goes here, you can put it here and vice versa. The soft peeling gel is my personal least favorite, but I see how it plays into a routine, and this lightweight oil is to die for, as well as this bamboo mist. I'm happy that I finally have a mist that I can trust to not overly strip, dry out my skin, or cause more transepidermal water loss. And when it comes to K-beauty versus American beauty, a lot of people don't realize why K-beauty is so hyped. And when you don't look into these things, or when you don't try the formulas or the textures, people just don't get it. And it is hard to generalize. We especially don't want to stereotype, especially because there are bad apples and bad brands that do come from Korea. And there are some exceptionally revolutionary and gentle brands and products that come from America. But in general, there are such differences with the way Korean beauty started, to how they approach the ritual of skincare, to the fermented ingredients that they like to focus on in their products, to the fact that most products' ingredients aren't just a ton of water, which yes is the universal solvent, but actually have high amounts of things like fermented black rice or fruit and plant antioxidants. If you're interested in shopping for Haru, I've left links to all of these products below. Again, it was so helpful to be able to work with them to uncover some of these details and finalities about the differences between Korean beauty and American beauty. And I'd actually love to know, what is your favorite K-beauty brand versus what is your favorite American brand? And how do you feel they compare? Do you agree with a lot of these differences that we kind of see coming out in the industry, or do you think that these are all stereotypes and don't actually hold true? Leave a comment, make sure that like button has changed color, and if that subscribe and notification bell haven't been hit, make sure that you do, so that when we talk more about updates from the sunscreen situation, or when we talk about more Korean beauty products that are worth the hype or overhyped, you don't miss it. Always remember to be beautiful both inside and out, and I cannot wait to see you in this next video. Love you guys. Bye.